everyone, and thank you for joining us today. This event is hosted and organized by Silent Scream Foundation, which is a non-profit organization in Ghana that works in the field of mental health care access, awareness, and destigmatization. Today's event is a mental health awareness training on the topic, Improving Mental Health in the Workplace. We are joined again by Mr. Richard Obeng-Yirenkyi, who is a nurse, educator, and psychiatric nurse at Pantang Hospital in Accra. He joined us previously to discuss the issue of bipolar disorder. He's going to bring his years of training and expertise to the conversation today, and we are grateful once again to have him. Any notes that the session will be recorded so that it can be revisited in the future. We'll also make it available to those who were not able to join us today. Please remember to keep your mics muted to avoid feedback and disruption so that we can hear Mr. Richard clearly. Kindly take note of any questions that will come up for you while he's presenting. You can type those questions in the chat for him, or you can send them directly to the moderator of the event, which is the Silent Scream Foundation, and we'll collate them and present them when he's done speaking. Finally, this event is free, like all the previous ones. This is made possible through the work that the Silent Scream Foundation does. So please help to share and boost our work to those who might need it. You can find us on Facebook at Silent Scream Foundation and LinkedIn at Silent Scream Foundation as well. You can also visit our website, silentscreamfoundation.org. You can also type Silent Scream Foundation into Google, and all this information will come up. You can learn more about the work that we do through these channels and can share with those who might need this information that we share here. Thank you once again, and we hope to have an enjoyable and informative session today. Thank you, Mr. Richard. Mr. Richard, please unmute.
Yes, thank you for hosting me today. In fact, I'm very appreciative of the effort. Today, our discussion will be around improving mental health in the workplace. I'll be sharing the screen for people to see what we'll be talking about today. Yeah, so today's lesson will be on improving our mental health in our workplaces. In fact, just as we find joy and then make friends in our workplaces, so do we also have challenges in our health, especially our mental health at work as well. This is so because there are certain factors or certain stresses that come into play at work, which some people are unable to take care of, and then it causes severe problems in their mental health. So that's what we'll be discussing today. The content will be on the definition of the mental health by World Organization, what occupational health is, and what occupational stress is, the sources of our stresses at work, or what causes occupational mental illness. Then we look at the impact of occupational stresses on the employees or on us, the employees, and then how to manage our mental health in the workplace. So we'll start with the definition of mental health by the World Health Organization. WHO explains mental health as a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities. So you are able to know your abilities, what you can do and what you can't do, and then the ability of the individual to cope with normal stress of life. So there's loss of a loved one, you are able to cope with it. There's relationship breakdown, you are able to cope with it. And then the individual's ability to work productively and fruitfully at work, and the ability of the individual to make contribution to his or her community. So this basically is what WHO defines mental health. And then we look at what occupational health is. So if you are at work, how do you see your health at work. What is occupational health? How healthy are you at work? So the WHO still defines occupational health as an area of work in public health. So there's a public health issue, and they seek to promote and maintain highest degree of physical, mental, and social well-being of workers in all occupations. In all occupations. So there's no limit to the occupation. Every occupation should have a good mental health or a good occupational health. Then what is occupational stress? How do we explain stress in our workplaces? Occupational stress refers to ways in which sources of stress, the source of stress is what brings us the stress or what causes us stress. These are the sources of stress. So it refers to ways in which sources of stress in the work environment can lead to psychological, behavioral, or physiological manifestation of stress. That's feeling of nervousness, anger, frustration, and all these things cause mental illness because you are at work and then you are not psychologically sound. Behaviorally, you start to behave in some way, shouting at your colleagues, shouting at your boss shouting at you, and all that. So some of these things will lead to nervousness. You see your boss and then you are nervous. You see your boss and you are angry. You see your boss and you are frustrated. Sometimes you see even some of your colleagues or supervisors and you are frustrated and angry. Some of these things, if it happens continuously, will lead to mental illness at our workplaces. So this is what we want to talk about and then let people understand how they can cope with it and how they can manage their mental health at work. We'll be talking about the sources of stress in our workplaces. So we talk about the source of occupational stresses. The stress are what causes the stress. And one is underuse of skills or being underskilled for work. This is one major problem in our workplaces. Why is it one major problem? You see people engaging in courses which they don't use in their workplaces. So you see someone in the bank, he didn't do banking and finance. He did maybe an art course or something, and then he finds himself in the bank. So his maths and his business is poor. So every time he's run at a loss. And in a bank, what I know is if you run at a loss, you have to use your money to pay. So this will cause the person stress in the workplace. So the person is either underusing his skills because he's not a banker, or the person is either underskilled for the work. Either you are a banker, you did banking and finance, you are supposed to be in a higher position, but you are given this teller or inquiry desk position. So that one, you are underusing your skills. Or either you went to School of Performing Arts and you are in the banking sector. So you are underskilled for that work. These are petty stresses that will lead to mental illness in your workplace. Secondly, is excessive workload or work pace and understaffing. When we are understaffed at work, it leads to excessive workloads on the employees. So the occupation needs about 10 people at a time. You go and then you meet 5 people. Imagine going to the hospital and then you meet only 5 nurses. The 5 nurses are taking care of about 50 patients at once. You see only 2 doctors who are supposed to see about 150 patients in a day. There will be excessive workloads on them, and it makes the work pace very slow. And this will in turn have problems with their mental health. There's long, unsocial, and inflexible hours. So there are some work which demand long hours, and these long hours are sometimes inflexible. When we say inflexible, time to eat is very small. Time to relax is very small. You work from morning till evening every day for 6 days. And I usually use the banking system or banking sector as a typical example. So you see bankers going to work from 5. and they will be in the bank till about 7 or 8 p.m. This is long and social inflexible hours because you see your colleagues every day for 6 days. The only people you see are the customers who come, and you are not given enough time to even chat with them. So you end up having a social life. And then another source of occupational stressor is unsafe or poor physical working condition. And I'll use the health sector as a typical example. So you go to the hospital, gloves to even work with is not available. Sometimes bed sheets, the mattresses are not put surrounded with Macintosh and all that. So the workplace becomes unsafe for you to work in. And then you don't see orderlies wiping the floor. There's poor physical working conditions. Some places are not tarred, some places are not painted. All these things cause stresses in our occupation. And the fifth point is organizational culture that enables negative behaviors. So there are some institutions which don't frown on negative behaviors. They rather encourage them. So you see your supervisors bullying you, you report to the manager or the boss, and then the boss is unable to deal with that. In so doing, that behavior continues, that negative behavior by the supervisors continue. So they assault the people physically, sexually, emotionally. This cause severe stresses or stress on the individual at work. And then there's poor job supervision. Imagine working without supervision. You don't know whether you are doing the right thing or you are doing the wrong thing because there's nobody to supervise you to tell you, hey, this should have been done this way, this should have been done that way. So you end up being stressed because you don't know where you are going. And then there's also limited support from colleagues or authoritarian supervision. So sometimes you don't get support from your colleagues. There's something that needs to be done right. You say it, instead of your colleagues to support you and then change certain behaviors at work, they tend to be afraid of their bosses or their directors, their managers, and then you are left alone to deal with that. Sometimes too, your supervisors are authoritarian. They don't listen to your point of view. These are major stresses that happen in our workplaces. There's sometimes violence, harassment, and bullying. I think I mentioned that earlier on, where some supervisors and even some colleagues or immediate colleagues who are ahead of you in position sometimes bully you through their skills, through their knowledge, and through their position. Discrimination and exclusion. So discrimination will be in terms of either gender, skills, and all that. You are a female, so you are not supposed to take this position. You are a male, so you're not supposed to take this position. You are a female, you're not supposed to do this work, but you have the ability to do that. And then so you start thinking about it. Why am I not able to do this? Why have I been sidelined to do this? And sometimes they exclude you in certain things. You see a meeting being held, and then you hear that this person have been listed for the meeting, but you are not. So that's where the exclusion comes in. And then sometimes too, what stresses us up in the workplaces is unclear job role. So you don't know your job role in the workplace. Your job description is not defined, whether you are supposed to do this. So as a nurse, this is your job description. This is what you do. You're supposed to do this up to this point. You're not supposed to do canalization. You're not supposed to do this, do minor surgeries and all that. These rules needs to be clearly defined for the worker to know that I can do things up to this point and not this point. If it is not clearly defined, you either overwork or you underwork. If you end up knowing that you've overworked, you become stressed because your overworking is not correlated with your pay. So you tend to get home I've been doing this. I'm the one who does it. I'm the one who does it, and I don't even get the pay for that. So there should be a clear definition of the job roles at our workplaces. And also under or over promotion. Some people have worked for longer years in their workplaces without being promoted. It's one major problem that faces us in our workplaces. Some people too come and then they over promoted. So the first year the person is a staff nurse. Just between a year or two, they become a senior staff nurse. And then after another year, they are nursing officers. And we all know the number of years you're supposed to work before you are promoted. So either the person is under promoted or they are over promoted. This leads to people to think, leads to people to be mentally down. And in so doing, by the time you realize you are having mental illness through your work or from your work. And then there's job insecurity, inadequate pay, poor investment in career development. So when employees are unable to secure their jobs, or you don't know when you'll be sacked, at a time you see your colleagues, you see about 10 people being laid off at the workplace, you tend to ask yourself, when is mine coming? So every time you tend to be more avant-garde at your work because your job is not secured. You don't even know when your letter will be given. And this will cause stress on you, inadequate pay as well. So you tend to work more and your pay is less. They don't invest in your career development. People are not allowed to go to school to further their knowledge and then come back to invest those knowledge in their workplaces. And then there's unrealistic expectation by employers and employees. This goes to both the employers and the employees. Some employers expect more from their employees. And also, some employees expect more from their employers and even from themselves. So your employer or your manager expects you to work about 8 or 9 hours. And then you expect your employer to pay you an X amount. At that time too, you yourself is expecting to do more for yourself to impress your boss. So you tend to have unrealistic expectation of what you have to do. Your boss is also having an unrealistic expectation of what you have to do. And then this becomes a stress for the individual at work. Also, there is demand control. This seeks to explain that people whose jobs rated high in demand but low in decision latitude. When we say decision latitude, there's an autonomy felt by the individual. They feel more tired at the work at the end of the day because people expect to be autonomous at their workplaces, especially when their job or their job demand is high. So they have trouble waking up in the morning, they experience more depression and anxiety. It's also noted that when workers in high demand roles have more decision latitude, they experience less stress. So what explains this is that there are people who would like to have autonomy on their work. And what we've understood or seen is that when people have autonomy on their own work, they tend to be less stressed, even when their job is in high demand, when their job is tedious, because they have that autonomy to make decisions for themselves. They don't feel it. But when your job is high, the demand of your job is high, and your boss is the one dictating for you, you feel more stressed than if you were the one dictating for yourself. And then we have effort-reward imbalance. So it claims that failed reciprocity in terms of high efforts spent and low rewards received in turn is likely to elicit recurrent negative emotions and sustained stress responses in exposed people. So there are times when your effort does not meet your reward. So you work high or you work hard and then your pay is not corresponding with the effort that you put in. And this is one major stress that we experience at our workplaces. Then presenteeism. This is the practice of being present at one workplace for more hours than required. And I was using the banking sector as a typical example. So the banking sector, the health sector, and I think across board, almost all the other occupations, they need you to be at the workplace every blessed day for all the long hours that you are supposed to stay there. So you go to work and then you have about 200 patients to take care of. When you fall sick, there's no one to replace you at the workplace. So some people are forced to even go to work when they are not feeling well. And in other words, they become more present at the workplace every blessed day. This causes occupational stress on them. And then there's burnout. Burnout is a syndrome that results from chronic workplace stress. So those stresses in the workplace is continuous, is present every day, and has not been successfully managed by the managers or the supervisors. They also lead to burnout on the employees. And it is characterized by 3 dimensions. You have feeling of energy depletion, you become very tired because of the work or exhaustion. Then there's increased mental distance from one's job. You don't feel like even going to the work. You have this feeling of negativism related to one's job, and then you have reduced professional efficacy. You're not able to work proficiently at work. Then how do we see, or what things can we see to know that someone is having occupational stress or an employee is going through occupational stress? One is weight gain or loss. So you see that a colleague of yours is losing weight or gaining weight. You might think if the person is married, you might think the wife is now giving him good food. But for all you know, that person is going through occupational stress. So some people, it's either weight gain or weight loss, because some people, when they go through stress, either gain weight, and some people also lose weight. So it's both ends. And then it makes the workers or employees more irritable. They are quickly agitated. They listen, they are angry. Then you have headaches and migraines. So these are the things that when people are going through at the workplace, as an employer or as a colleague, you tend to realize, oh, okay, I think you're going through occupational stress. Something needs to be done. Do you have a problem? So some of these signs are what we have to be taking note of. If a colleague is going through this, it's either the person is having a general medical condition or the person is going through occupational stress. So there's chronic insomnia or sleep problem. A colleague will tell you, currently I'm unable to sleep well. I sleep very late and I'm unable to wake up early. So either I sleep early and then wake up very early at dawn. I sleep around 8. I used not to sleep like that. Now I sleep around 8 and I wake up around 12 a.m. and I'm unable to sleep again. And then you see that there's low productivity with the employees, and their frequent absenteeism. So when we're talking about the source of stress, we made mention of presenteeism. Yes, when the people become more stressed, they tend to absent themselves because of some of the sources of stress, whether they feel like their pay is not corresponding to their effort. And then there's low energy and fatigue. So the person will come to work and they feel very tired. They don't feel like working. There's increased health problem. Every time they are asking for permission to go to hospital, they are not feeling well, they are having headaches, they are having migraine, sleep problem. All these things will increase their ill health. And accident and incident reports. There's hypervigilance. Sometimes the employees become paranoid of their work. This is so because the person having demand control problem. The person is feeling not rewarded enough for their effort. And then they tend to compare their pay with their colleagues. For you know, they share similar job description similar certificates, and then one is receiving more money than the other. This makes people more paranoid. There's anxiety and worry. Anxiety and worry because you don't feel like your job is secured. You don't even know when you'll be sacked. Then they tend to defend their behaviors. When an employee or a colleague makes a mistake and you tell them, instead of them to accept their mistakes and then move forward, they tend to defend their behaviors, which is not particular about them. And they tend to set boundaries too. You see someone telling you, don't come to my space. Henceforth, just be at your desk. I need to work by myself. I don't need you. They tend to set boundaries. Don't come near me. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't come to my space. A whole lot. And then they also tend to avoid gathering. And these things, these signs are signs that are not peculiar to them. So when you see them, you see these signs as a colleague, you tend to know that either your colleague is going through a form of stress, whether occupational stress or a stress coming from house or somewhere. Then they blame others. They blame others for their misfortunes, bad practices at work, and then what have you. Whatever they are doing that is causing them stress, they tend to blame them on either their colleagues or on their managers. So this is a picture showing how people become stressed in their occupation. You can just see the number of books in front of the woman. So all those files are files that she has to work on. Imagine you being in this position. You tend to be stressed because you don't even know when you'll be finishing with them and new ones keep coming and piling up. So there's a photo depicting some stress, someone being stressed at work. And this one also. So the lady is in front of the computer. He has to meet a deadline. If you look at the picture, someone is holding a clock. So he has to meet a deadline. And in as much as he has to meet a deadline, other work keep coming on her. So someone is showing her a graph, someone is also bringing her his portfolio and all that. So these things are sources of stress that worry us in our workplaces. And then because someone is so tired at the workplace and so stressed up, they become productively low. There's low productivity. He is even sleeping at the workplace. So in all this, we've talked about the occupational health, sources of occupational health, signs that will let us know when a colleague is going through occupational stress or stresses. And how do we manage these things? In our coming lesson, we'll be talking about managing mental health at our workplaces. So you've seen the signs and symptoms, and then what do you do? Usually with occupational stress, the organization is what we tackle most and less on the employees because the stresses are coming from the managers and the organization with few coming from their colleagues. Even though our colleagues and then our colleagues give us stress, most of the stresses come from the work that we do. And the work that we do is imposed by the managers and the supervisors. So we tend to deal with them more than the employees. So if they are able to manage the organization well, there's less stress on the employees. So we say that we have to create an open, inclusive, and accepting culture. And this has to be done by the organization. So the organization is run by managers, supervisors, and then the workers. But then it is the supervisors and managers who have to see that this thing works in their workplace. So employees need to believe that their organization provides a positive and inclusive working environment and trust that they will be provided with the support they need. If you have this, there's less stress on you at work. If the organization is open, organization is inclusive, they add the employees to any decision that they make. And then there's kind of accepting culture. So you're a Black woman, you're a Black man, you are accepted. you're an Indian, you are this, you are accepted. You feel at peace and you feel at home when you are working. But when some of these things are not in place, you'll be stressed up at work. And then you have to set the tone from the higher positions. As I said, these things need to be started by the managers and supervisors or the leaders in the organization. So the leaders have a duty of championing good mental health in the workplace through showcasing their commitment of creating a culture that is both understanding and supportive of their employees. So when your manager makes you understand that he's accepting, he understands your problem, you tend to be more relieved than when a manager is demanding and still don't understand why you are going through certain challenges. So this thing help break the stigma of being open about mental health issues at work and set the tone for the rest of the organization. So a manager can just come tell you people the work is demanding, understand some challenges that you are facing. So this and that are the things that I want us to put in place to help ourselves. You can just imagine how relieved the employees will be because their manager is understanding. Then we have to provide training for managers and supervisors. We are saying this because they run the helm of affairs in organization. If they are demanding and don't know that their high demand on employees will cause mental illness in them, then there's nothing that we can achieve in respect to mental health at the workplaces. So we have to provide training for the managers and supervisors, training for senior and middle supervisors on how to understand and identify mental health and well-being issues, and what support is available must be provided. So when supervisors and managers are trained to understand and know what mental health or mental illness is, they are able to put themselves in their situation and understand and give support where needed. You have to provide the right forums for all employees to have a voice. So the job place or the workplace shouldn't be only for the managers to have a voice, to talk their mind, and then always be pushing out their directives. We are saying that a mentally healthy workplace culture is the creation of an environment where employees feel their voice is heard on all issues. So when there's forums, employees are able to voice out their problems, and then they should provide the right forums for that. Not just any forum at all, but they should also provide right forums where they ask the employees their challenges for them to voice out their challenges and then know how best that those challenges will be met or will be addressed. And we have regular meetings shouldn't be solely about work. Usually all meetings that are made or held in the organizations and in our workplaces are almost always about work, meeting deadline, being productive, how the work will get money and all that. Usually, sometimes we have to also talk about the health or the well-being of the employees. So the managers and then other colleagues can just chip in to check on their friends at work or their colleagues. It's been a while. I haven't seen this colleague of mine. I wanted to ask where he is and then what is happening to him. So the meeting shouldn't always be about work, but we can just chip in, engage an employee's overall well-being. We also provide regular and transparent communication. Among all employees, staff must be reminded regularly on the organization performance, goals, and vision. This helps employees to understand what the organization is trying to achieve and they keep them devoted. So when we are transparent about the organizational structure, the organization's goals, and then the organization's vision, employees will understand this, and then regularly they will try to achieve those goals and visions, and they will be devoted with it because managers are open to them. Managers are more welcoming. We also have to offer regular training and development. We thought about some organizations not helping or not allowing people to further their education. So if in so doing, some organizations can also bring people into the organization to train them and develop their skills further. This is done to engage employees, develop their career, boost their confidence, and improve their morale. We also have to run mental health and well-being initiatives. And these initiatives, sometimes in some organizations, some of these initiatives can be achieved through internally. Thus, there are other colleagues who have knowledge about mental illness and their mental conditions. So you can source them right from the organization to have a chat with their colleagues. Or we can also bring external expertise to support employees holistically. Then we have to consider external support. This is very, very important. Most of the organizations need to seek external support through NGOs and then through government institutions. NGOs like Silent Scream, you can seek their support. They will bring expertise on board to come and talk to your employees and then your managers for them to understand what mental illness is, how they can support the employees and all that. In as much as that, you can also see governmental institutions, Pantang Hospital, Accra Mental, and all the others are there. So we consider external support, and this is what some of the managers should be looking at to do, because with the internal initiatives, you can't get more experts to do that. So I think we will be done with our management of mental health at our workplaces. I think we started from what the definition of mental health by who, and then what occupational health is, what occupational stress is, the source of occupational stresses, and the use of skills, organizational culture that enables negative behaviors, poor job supervision, and then we continue with those same source of occupational stresses. And then we talked about the signs that if you are an employee, you know that a colleague of yours is going through occupational stress, weight loss or gain, irritability, chronic headaches, setting boundaries, avoiding gatherings, blaming others, low energy and fatigue, a host of others. And then how we can manage mental health at our workplaces. So to add to this, what our colleagues can also do in our workplaces, most of the things we talked about is for the managers. However, sometimes we are stressed at work from our same colleagues. So our colleagues need to be more accepting. And then you allow your colleague to share his or her experiences. You don't just brush off their problems. So you are more accepting, you have that listening skills. I think you are going through some problem. I can feel that. Do you want to share with me? These are the minor things that our colleagues can also learn to manage our mental health at work. So you have to be accepting of each other's behavior. Don't be judgmental. And then you are open-minded. You don't see the person and start judging. Oh, you like talking, you like this, you like this, you like that. And don't brush their problems off. So we'll end our lesson here, and then it ends lesson on improving mental illness or mental health at our workplaces. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Richard. So we've come to the end of Mr. Richard's presentation. Now it's time for the Q&A. So if you have any questions that occurred to you while he was speaking or afterwards, you can kindly type them in the chat. And you can also type them in the chat and send them directly to the Silent Scream account so that it can be read on your behalf. Thank you. Okay, please, there's a question here, Mr. Richard. The person said the last thing you said, so the person is asking about the last thing you said about people helping. I'm coming, let me try to.
Okay.
I think the person is, okay, so the person is saying that what he said about the fact that we should also be there for our colleagues. The person says sometimes you become the person that everybody is coming to about their problems. And then it becomes, you also start to feel burdened. So what do you do in that circumstance?
So that's why I said that we almost always need to consider external support. You see, external support meaning that you are a colleague. Most of your colleagues are bringing their burdens on you. They are having their complaints, sharing their problems on you, and in so doing, you also become burdened with their problem. What you can do is to source this thing externally, because you are not a mental health expert. If their challenges are more to deal with mental health, then the best thing to do is to seek for an external expert who is a mental health related person. And this will help you a lot in managing their stress than trying to manage for them, because what the experts will do for them will not be the same as you do for them. I don't know whether I've had his answer right.
Yes, please. I'm sure maybe
if only their problems are mentally related. You see, if they are socially related, then you just give them your point of view and then you end there. But if you think it's very challenging, and then because mental issues are not they are not privy to just mental issues cuts across board. Social issues becomes mental issues, because if you're unable to deal with them, they tend to cause mental problems on that person. So I think if your colleagues are bringing most of their problems to you and you think you are unable to give them or offer them the necessary support, the right thing for you to do is to channel those things to the appropriate sources. If it's a social issue, we have the social support structure there. If it's a mental issue, you have the mental support structure there. I think that will best suit the person than trying to be the hero.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, there's another question that says, what should the manager do when their stress is coming from the people they supervise?
What should the manager do
when their stress is coming from the people they supervise?
Yeah, so I think it's bi-directional. Either the employees can cause stress to the manager, and then the manager can cause stress to the employee. That's why we were talking about managing all the stress in the workplace. The thing is that usually employees cause stress to the managers because the managers started causing the stress on them. And this is not always so though, but in cases where the colleagues are rather becoming a stress on the manager, I think the manager needs to go through the organizational structure, know what to do and what not to do. If the employee is not doing what he's supposed to do, and then you have to serve them some letters or some caution, then you have to do that. So with this, the manager needs to go through the organizational structure, their rules and regulations, and then use that to maybe punish or solve those issues with the colleagues. If a colleague is stubborn, he's almost always late at work, this will cause problem or cause a stress on the manager. So in so do we have rules and regulations at the workplace where the manager needs to follow. I hope you get me. So if the person is a late comer, a habitual late comer, then either the pay needs to be reduced or you set the person to another, you put the person to another position or something to do the work. If there's a work that will start from 9 to 4, then the person will rather do that one that start from 7 to maybe 12 or to 1. So it's the manager who would try to see the things that could be done to solve that problem. And I think it will be through the rules and regulation of the organization that will help the manager to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I said I work in a startup. It's a small company. We don't have any HR or any proper lines of communication. Okay, we don't have any proper lines of communication. In the instance of sexual harassment or other workplace violations, how do I send up a complaint? I don't know if the question is clear.
Yes, it is.
Oh.
It is very, very clear. Our females have been going through this kind of harassment, bullying, and then discrimination at their workplaces. Usually, if this harassment and then bullying is not from the manager, then you have to report to the manager. If it's from the manager, then you have to report to the appropriate institutions, which will be to the police or the DOFSU people. If it's not from the manager, then the best person to report is the manager. But if it's from the manager, then you can't go anywhere else than to report to the appropriate institutions. But you see, usually our colleagues fear of their job security. They want to secure their jobs. So when they are bullied or they are sexually harassed, they keep those things to themselves, which is not right. Because if you don't speak out or report, those behaviors will continue by the manager, not only on you, but on your other colleagues. So I think if the channel of communication is not well spelled out, then she will have to, or he will have to channel those concerns to external institutions like the police, the DOFSU, I think the other institutions that you can make the report to.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
There's a question here about the person says, what do you do in a workplace that cuts corners or uses legal loopholes to make profits? In the instance that you've participated in some of this without being aware, if you report, you might also get in trouble, but it's causing a moral conundrum. What do you do in such a situation?
Please, can you come back with a question? I didn't really get it.
Okay, let me try to rephrase it. So the person is saying that I think the person works in a workplace where the fellow employees and then maybe even the management cut certain corners to make profit. So maybe they're not necessarily doing something illegal, but they're using legal loopholes. And then the person was forced to participate in it without knowing that was what was happening. But now the person realized, and then person is worried, if I report, I'm also going to get in trouble. But then if I stay to, it causes some sort of moral issues because you don't want to do something like that. So what does a person do?
It's quite difficult. So I think if you think morally, whatever the company is doing is conflicting with your moral values, I think the best thing to do is for you to maybe quit and then find another one. That's if you think the behaviors of the organization or what the organization does conflict with your moral values, then that one, the only option out is to quit. Because what they are doing, I don't think it's legal. If it's legal, it will never conflict with your moral values. So for you not to find yourself in a place where you have legal issues, then the best way out is to maybe find another job. If they are caught one day, I think most of the employees will find themselves wanted because you'll be seen as a participant to that thing or to whatever they did, whatever the organization was doing. So I think if morally you think you have some conflict with the organization's way of going about their business, I think the best way is to quit. If you can address it to them for them to stop, then fine. But if not, then because if they have even 10 employees and you are the only one having the problem, the only thing they can tell you that if you can't stay with us, you have to leave. So I think that will be the only option out. But if you talk to them and then you find another means that they can make the money without going through those loopholes, I think they will surely go by that. If only you have another way for them to get their money, a more legal way, I think you can suggest to them and then they go by that. Other than that, the only option for them to even tell you is to quit.
Yeah. Okay, there's a question here. It is clear that a very large number of issues at occupational workplaces originate from management and legislators. What is being done to get them to resolve these issues?
Well, I think what is being done is what we thought about in the managing mental health at our workplaces. So the organizational structure or the managers manning the organization is to create an open or inclusive and accepting culture. I think we made mention of all those managers. They have to set the tone from the higher positions and then provide training for managers and supervisors. I think his answer is about the management we thought about. I don't know whether he was around when we were doing the management.
Okay, thank you.
Because if you know the management, then the colleagues or the employees in the workplace will help to check the managers to do some of these things for them. It's because the employees don't know their left from right. And because of that, the managers tend to override on them and then do whatever they want. But if the employees know the expectation of the managers, then they can push the managers to do what is right. But if we leave some of these things to only one employee to do that, then we'll not be having or getting any headway on that. So if we all know that we should have transparent communication, if employees know and then the manager violates it, the organization, or you see, most of the employees also have their own organization. So those small organizations can just sit the managers down and talk to them that this is what you are supposed to do. This is what we also expect from you. This is what we are giving. So this is what we also expect you to give to us. That's where you have to know the management of the mental health at work. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So there's two issues here. I think both of them are not really questions, but it's more of a discussion. So the first one, the person is talking about working in an NGO. The person said, usually you feel pressure because you know the work you are doing is helping people and you don't want to complain about your stress because you feel that if you take a break or something, people who need that help will not be able to get it. So you don't even like to take leave. And then another person is saying that they relate to the issue the other person was talking about, the legal loopholes, because the person said in their circumstances, not necessarily legal loopholes, but sometimes you see your work colleagues doing, you see your work colleagues doing things they are not supposed to do, but you feel that if you report, you will become a sort of outcast in the office. Maybe they will say things like you are always reporting people and stuff. So I don't think there are questions necessarily, but it's just an issue that they are bringing up.
One thing is we usually get stressed up when our colleagues are doing something we can't do. And the sad part is you reporting the issue and the issue not giving the appropriate attention. Because usually even the one you are going to report to used to be doing that. Because some of the managers rise through the ranks in the organization. So there are some things your colleagues are doing that the managers themselves did when they were there. And that's one of the sad parts when it comes to those problems faced at work, because you can see some of your colleagues taking some days off when their managers are not around or they've traveled. And then you don't do that. So you become burdened with work, because a work that's supposed to be done by 4 people, one person just decided not to come. The next day, another person decided not to come. So every time you see the other 3 people alternating their shifts. And this, that is some of the problems we face in the organization. Usually we have to report these things to our managers first, because if you don't report it, then you can't say point blank that there's nothing being done about it. It's when you've reported and nothing was done, that is where you can concretely say that the managers are not doing anything. But I think the first step is to report those behaviors, and don't see yourself to be an outcast when you do that. They would start tagging you with some names. You are this, you are that, you are this. But trust me, when people go abroad, they do the right thing. So they are supposed to do the right thing right here. So I think the best thing to do or to start with is to report their behavior, because those behaviors in turn affect us. So we have to report them. And I think you made mention of another thing. It was two discussions.
Yes, the other person is talking about the NGO and saying that because you feel you are helping people, even when you get stressed, you don't want to take a break because you know people will be affected.
So one thing that we have to do as employees is to go on breaks. Our breaks are in the form of leave. And then with your leave, what you do is you can go on vacation. You can enjoy yourself in a pleasurable activity that is off the work that you used to do. But sometimes some employees or some workers tend to feel for the job before feeling for themselves. You see, when you do this, the employer is the one who benefits. So what we usually tell our employees and then the managers, in fact, all the workers in the organization, is to take their leave off and then enjoy their leave whilst they are away from work. So you enjoy in some pleasurable activities, you can have some travel. Usually, we Africans don't engage in holiday travels. You see a Ghanaian worker going on leave and going to do even more tedious work than what he used to do or she used to do. You are supposed to use your leave to relax, to regain your strength. So I think that's what we have to do. And it's another way of managing mental health at the workplace. Our leave is supposed to help us relieve ourselves from those working stress or occupational stress by going home, relaxing, sleeping, enjoying ourselves with our family for that period of time. So if you say that because of work, you are working with an NGO and then you want to support the poor and the needy and then the mentally challenged, so because of that, your mental issue is not something of importance to you, then you tend to be also exhibiting mental illness in the long run. So I think we are supposed to enjoy our leave or enjoy our off days, because our off days are meant for enjoyment and relaxation. So that's what the person needs to do, not always taken at work. That's the first, the other point with the source of stresses in our workplace. That's presenteeism, because the person almost always present at work, which is bad.
Yeah. Okay, so someone is talking about an instance of a toxic workplace where you share, for example, you share mental health issues with a colleague or a manager, and then the person goes to report or sometimes inaccurately reports. So maybe you shared it in confidence and then the person goes to tell others that they were not supposed to tell. And then information in closed door meetings are also reported to those who were not in the meeting. So they're not supposed to have that information. The person says, especially even if it happens at HR, so how does such an employee seek help for their mental health?
So the main reason why we wanted to discuss this issue is because, you see, his problem is particularly with both the employees and the employers. There are situations where colleagues are not accepting. I think I made mention of that. They are not accepting, they are judgmental, they are not able to keep things within themselves. You tell them something and then they blurt those things out. That is part of the stresses that happen in the workplace. So the first point when I thought about the managing of the mental health or managing mental health at work was to create an open, inclusive, and accepting culture. You see, this thing, even though we expect them from the managers, the employees need to also create an open, inclusive, and accepting culture. That's what we are expecting both the employees and then the employers to do. And the employees need to believe that the organization provides a positive and inclusive working environment. When we say this, we are almost always saying that when managers understand this, it creates a culture in the organization, because you say something to the manager and nobody hears it. And this manager has made it aware across board that we have to confide in each other and be confidential about each other's situation. If the manager is able to create this, then it cuts across the entire organization, because if you violate this, there's punishment that will be meted out to you. And you see, this discussion is done so that we will be able to start doing this in our workplaces gradually for it to become a habit and a culture. And usually we want to tackle it from the organizational heads, because they are the roots of some of the problems. In an organization where there's no clear-cut rules and no clear-cut punishment, the manager even doesn't frown on negative behaviors. You tend to be seeing this. So you report to the manager that I said something to this staff, and then now everybody has heard it. It is rest upon the manager to call that said staff or that said employee or a supervisor and then mete out some punishment to him, because someone can't just confide in you and then you blurt out whatever he said to you in the open. So that's why when I started, I said that most of this management are targeted towards the managers and supervisors, even before the employees. So I think it is this conversation is done because some of the participants here might be managers and supervisors, while some are employees. So we can just carry this thing along and be practicing them gradually for them to turn into a culture for all of us.
Yes, please. Okay, I think we'll take one, and there's just one question left here. So the person says, this is also not really a question, but I think it's more a point of discussion. The person said they once had a traumatic incident which led to a mental health crisis at work. After the crisis, the supervisors and management gave the person some sort of leave to go and then receive treatment and come. But after they came back, they noticed that there was a lot of stigma, and the person has not been able to function properly at work because people shun the person and are talking about the person behind their back. And so I think that's what the person is sharing.
Oh, okay. One thing is with the management of or managing mental health issue, I think one other thing that we have to do is to have the attitude of reception, especially when people who have undergone some mental challenges at their workplace were given some off and then coming back to work. We have to create an attitude of reception. And you see, when I say that some of these things are rooted from the managers, people don't understand, because when the person reporting back to work with a mental challenge is warmly received by the manager at the main entrance, you can just imagine what the other colleagues will do. You have no other way than to also receive, whether you want to receive naturally or having to do with however you want to receive it. You see, that is why we are targeting the managers in all this, because the managers need to receive the person. There's some organization when after having mental challenges or some episodes of mental illness, you are not even received back to the organization. You are not received back to the organization from the manager, not from the employees, of course, because the employees didn't employ you. So it is the managers who need to set this tone for the employees to follow. So that is why we are saying that the managers need to, even though the colleagues sometimes or the employees, the other employees also have problems in receiving. But when they see that the manager has a good reception, warmly received the person who had the mental illness back to work, then all of them will have that open arms to also receive you back. So the problem that we are having is with the manager and the supervisors. They have to create those culture and then those those culture, and then maybe atmosphere for the other employees to also follow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I think we have to wrap up the Q&A session. I'm also not seeing any other questions in the chat. So we have to wrap up now, but we want to allocate a little extra time in case people want to interact or discuss. But for now, the official Q&A session will be ended. So just to be mindful of people's time. But if you have any interaction or discussion you want to have, please feel free to stay behind and continue. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Mr. Richard, thank you so much for joining us again. And you joined us for the bipolar disorder, and you joined us today too for this important topic of mental health in the workplace. So thank you so much for lending us expertise.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone of the participants today who have joined us. You know, some of you are joining us even from outside of Ghana. So I want to thank you so much for giving us this hour of your Saturday morning and joining us to spread the information about mental health care, access and awareness and destigmatization. Once again, this session was completely free and through the work of Silent Scream Foundation. So please help us to spread the word and share what we do on your social media platforms to friends who might need this. This particular session was recorded and to be uploaded on our YouTube. We'll share that link in the group chats on WhatsApp. We'll also share it on all the social media platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn. So please look out for that. If someone you know needed the information that was shared here but couldn't join us, the person can also watch and then get that information. Our website, silentscreamfoundation.org. Our social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Silent Scream Foundation. So thank you so much, everyone. We hope you have a wonderful weekend. Once again, if there are interactions or discussions people want to have that they were not able to have during the session, please feel free. You can unmute, you can speak. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a point to raise.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much. I need to actually commend the initiative and effort of the facilitator and the organizer. Honestly, doing a very ample good work that to the society, not only but at large, we really appreciate this. My own contribution has to be very brisk, and it has to do with this managing mental health at work. It could be by way of suggestion, and it could be by way of contribution. It's a very cumbersome topic, very, very cumbersome topic. As you know, one factor emanates, another one will be overlapping. So I think one of the suggestive way an employee can deter him or herself from mental illness or stress emanating from their supervisors is to identify how your superior wants you to function at work. Yes, there are two superiors that you may have. One may expect you to work on instruction, and another one may expect you to work with initiative. There are two different bosses. So if you are the type of an employee that wants to perform your job with initiative, and you are under a boss that wants you to work on specific instruction, it will not work. So before you know, it starts emanating one or two stress. So it's just by way of contribution that we study ourselves, study your boss, and know how exactly your boss wants you to function, so that you will not conflict his or her interests. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much as well.
Okay, someone has typed something. I think maybe they are not able to unmute. The person said the over religiosity in workplaces also needs to stop, especially in the person said especially in workplaces where they don't even follow religious doctrines.
I
Okay,
think
the person has added an add-on. The person said, you will go to work and they demand morning devotion, but they don't do the right thing outside of that. So I think the person is saying that they sort of perform some sort of religiousness, but their behavior doesn't show that.
I think that is just a social problem. You see, with most of the work, people have what they believe in. Some people do believe in Buddha, God, Allah, whatsoever. And it becomes a problem when they are overly religious. If he's saying they are overly religious, then it becomes a problem. When we say overly religious, it is where maybe you'll be praying in the morning, praying in the afternoon, and praying in the evening, or before work stops. So, and also overly religious in the sense that we are supposed to pray maybe just 5 minutes and then work begins. And then you see people now bringing out prayer topics, which will last for about 40 or 1 hour. This is a form of over-religiosity because the work is not a religious seminar. But some of these things tend to come from either some of the colleagues or the immediate supervisors. It might be something instituted by the manager or something, but then I don't think the managers who institute those things give a clear-cut timeline as to you have to spend 20 or 40 minutes. They just put those things there for people to feel at home. When I go to work, we pray. When I go to this, we pray. Just for you to share that your religious belief. But then I think some of the colleagues, I'm stressing on that because some people are pastors in their own right. And then they will, instead of just praying for a minute or two, they tend to become a church service. I think the only thing they don't do is offertory. They would even like to give offertory if they had the time. So it's a collective responsibility that if you think the time is up for you, then you can just leave. I think if most of the colleagues start leaving within 3 or 4 minutes, the next time they wouldn't be going through that lengthy time of prayers. So I think it's also rest upon the other employees or colleagues to start putting some system in place that if you are overly religious, we are not. We share your belief, but not to that extent of time. So I think that one is a collective responsibility from all the employees there.
Yes.
Hello. Hello.
Yes. Yes.
Hello. Good morning. Good morning. Hello.
Good morning.
My name is Bayo Adeteju. Yes, I listened to the question, but it seems as if that's not the question that was answered. If you look at the question, that's not the question. The question is not the amount of time that you spend. The person is talking about hypocrisy, whereby we come for a meeting in the morning, oh, sorry, we are supposed to be good. Take, for example, I don't want to mention any religion because there are people who have different religion, and most religions really teach you to be pious. That, oh, sorry, we have to be good, we have to be nice. But the person is taking, oh, immediately leave that place. Your boss is now pushing you. You need to bribe your way to get this business now. That's what he's talking about, not the amount of time that they spend at probably various hours. They pray in the morning and afternoon and night. That's not the question. The question seems to be talking about hypocrisy. That look, why is it that, oh, we must be religious? Oh, everybody, you know, our God says we should not lie, we should not do this and that. But the moment you leave that place, the next thing your boss is pushing is, go and do this, which the person feels is unethical. That, oh, if you believe that, oh, we are that religious, we should be pushing ethical issues. That's I think that's what the question is all about. It's not about the amount of time that is spent on religious activities at the workplace.
So, hello.
Hello, yes.
Hello. Yes.
Hello.
So, I think then that's a very interesting dynamic that the person is coming from, and I guess most organizations, some organizations will be guilty of that. But it's strange that organizations will make like prayer section or religious section almost compulsory in their companies, and then turn around and be very immoral in their attitude. I believe that's because of the fact that we are humans. So can we have a conversation around, in that case, what should such a person do if you find yourself trapped in that situation, that you are required to act out righteousness or religiousness, and yet the activities surrounding you and everything is definitely not working well. So let's discuss that and see what kind of advice or what kind of solution, what should such a person do once they are trying to manage it. Probably we could say leave the company, but we all know it's not easy to get a job. So if we just leave the company, the person now leaves, what does the person depend on? So how does the person manage to survive in an environment like that and still maintain their sanity, even as they watch such hypocrisy go on? Thank you.
Yes, madam. I think I really appreciate. Sorry, can I make it? Am I allowed?
Yeah.
Yes.
Am I allowed? Okay. Now, I really appreciate. I really appreciate your presentation. I really appreciate your presentation because not only were you addressing the questions, you also look at the reality. You see, the reality is that, oh, sorry, we know that it's very difficult to get another job, and then you are asking somebody to do that. Yes, that's the reality that you are bringing into this issue. You see, what I believe that change in any environment does not start with a large number of people. It starts with one person. But the only thing is just that in that kind of situation where you find yourself, there's a subtle way that the person might not be able to repeat certain things. But each time the person wants to do that, you make a subtle reference to what we normally preach, maybe in our morning devotions. It's not as if you say you are not going to do it. Sometimes by and by, it might be getting to some people, that some people might realize, okay, sorry, we should go and do this, but we thought we were told this thing in the morning. Then you still went ahead and do it. In a subtle way, by and by, I think your immediate supervisors and managers and some things might really be getting the feedback that what they are doing in the morning devotions or whatever is a variance or contradictory to the practices. And it will take a time. It can't be a sharp break because you have said it. Some people will be very hard on you and say, okay, leave this job. because that's where we make our money. And yet they don't stop that in money. I think it's gradual thing. You pass the message across gradually, and some other people might pick it with time, and then you might be able to change it. But it can be you might not be able to get a drastic change from what it is when you want to make a change.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to make. I also agree, and then I would like to add that there are certain, so in terms of trying to go with the group and also to trying to assert yourself, I think that probably the person must have to at least determine and have some idea as to what will be too much to bend to and what will just be okay to bend to. There will be some hypocrisy that will demand that it affects the very fabric of your beliefs and on your thoughts, and even affects you if you get involved in. So there should be, you should have in your mind, at the back of your mind, that this is how far you will go, and this is how far you will not go. And I think that when you lay that foundation up front, right from the beginning, it can make a difference. Now, it can make a difference when you become, say, if you like, a dependable employee. If you are at work and you give your very best and you do it right and you go the extra mile, then your views begin to matter. So as much as you are calling on the hypocrisy that your employer is showcasing, you must also not engage in hypocrisy yourself. But if you were seen to be a dependable employee, you come to work on time, you do your best, you put in the extra effort, etc. And then there is a particular tax they give you, and because this is the one that is against your very core values, you say, this one I cannot do because I am uncomfortable with it because of A, B, and C. Then you begin to make the impact that you are looking to make. But if you yourself don't act what you preach, and probably you are not a star performer, you are relaxed at what you do, etc. Then when you are trying to make those pushes, nobody will take you serious because they really don't mind losing you. But if you make yourself exceptional, then the company will be, at the beginning, like I said, it will be very hard for you to push it. But like you're saying, gradually, and also you also trying to be the kind of person that the company will not easily want to lose you. You may find that such hypocritical work they will stop bringing it to you more and more, and probably pass it to the person whom they think will be able to do it. But they will begin to respect you, and for all you know, you may become somebody's mentor and probably make lots of changes. Those are my views, though. But if others have more to contribute to it, it will be great to hear from your perspective. Hello, moderator. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm done with my.
Yeah. So someone said that the person is a Muslim, and sometimes the person is even forced to also read some of the Bible verses and then pray with them during the devotion, even though the person has said that this is not their religious belief. So I think this is a general issue of people being, not only the hypocrisy part, but the fact that people are being forced to engage with it against their will is also making people not happy.
I think the slide that I've put on, usually we have to create that culture of fairness and equity. See, if there's fairness, then you know that some employees are not from the same religious background. So you can just excuse them when they tell you, okay, I'm a Muslim, so I can't engage in the prayers. And that's when there's fairness, because I think I'll just take this thing from the angle of being fair as an employer or as a supervisor. Because if I'm not a Muslim and then you tell me because the manager or the organization is from a Muslim background, you tell me to go and pray. I think most of the Christians will find themselves wanting or will not be at peace with it. So I think organization needs to be fair and then equitable so that some of these mishaps will not happen. That's my take on that too.
Yeah, I'd like to contribute, please.
Yeah.
This issue of complying with religious activities at work, really, most of these things should be covered in legislation so that people know what their rights are and what the law says. It looks like in a lot of the cases that I have encountered, a lot of the problem is because nobody seems to know the left from the right as to what you should do at work and what you should not do, especially when it comes to devotion. I mean, when you are under the umbrella of a certain employer, you just do what they tell you to do. And if you don't, the possibilities are that you will be sacked. That is in Ghana, because they don't like it like that. And it doesn't matter whether it's a Muslim or a Christian employer. In fact, just yesterday, I actually encountered something like that. And I find it because the legislators have not made it clear enough as to what you should be doing. That's my contribution there. Okay?
Yeah, it's really appreciated. I really get your point though. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's basically one of the main problems because there's no clear-cut legislation on that.
Hello. Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, I really I appreciated your contribution. But you see, the understanding is that I don't think because there's no clear-cut legislations, even there are some other laws that covers all these things. If you come up today with any legislation that specifically says certain things, except you are saying that people should not pray. But if what you are only saying that, oh, sorry, people's religious views should be respected, there's even no organizations that says that it shouldn't be so. It's always the individual managers that is organizing this thing that is always getting involved in this thing, trying to force others, that probably to observe their own religious practices and all those things. It's not the organization. No, I doubt very much whether any organization will have a practice that says, okay, we are based on this particular view or religious, and as a result of that, anybody that comes here must. No. They will want to respect everybody because there are some other laws that cover is whether we are coming out with another specific laws or not. Or there are other existing laws under which those things can operate. But it depends on those individuals. And it's because those people really lack understanding, even about religion generally. Well, as a Christian, as a believer and a Christian, what I know is that you can only preach to people. You cannot force them to really be, no matter how much you try. You cannot succeed in making anybody to follow your religion except they want to. But I can force you to observe some practices. Then, if I'm a very religious person, I will know that observation of those practices does not make you a religious person. If my intention is that, oh, I want to really make you to become who I am, maybe my religion, forcing you to do some practices will not, at the end of the day, if you are not still convinced, you only do it well to satisfy my interest, maybe at the place of work, and then you leave at the next moment. But the moment you leave and then you continue to practice your religion, I've achieved nothing. So I should know that I should give you free hand, rather I should have conducted myself in a manner that will endear you to me to believe that, oh, because I'm this religious, and that is why my manner, my relationship with my subordinates and even maybe superior is like this, a very cordial and nice one. You might start looking at that, being a mentor, I might start mentoring you, and then you might really find yourself, if I tune it to my religion because you believe that it's the religion that has taught me to be doing what is right. So that's what you obtain. Law will not help it. Legalistic issues. will not really help matters. No matter how much law will come up, if we still have individuals that are so much strongly attached, to their religion and want to force it on others, when you find such a person as your supervisor, in a subtle way or in a direct way, they still want you to do that. In fact, somebody might even overlook it. Yes, read the Bible. Maybe it's a Christian, say read the Bible and you refuse to read the Bible. Okay, don't worry. I'm the one that will give you assessment at the end of the year. And then you know that that thing is influencing the way he does it. You will be forced to be doing it, yet your heart is not within. So I think it is not about law, it's about individual. And I think the director was talking about the other time that's why this thing is talking about the managers. That's why you are addressing people who are managing others to be the one to show the example. You want to really have this understanding that people should be allowed to practice their religion the way they want it, and you'll be fair to everybody, irrespective of their religious learning, even at the workplace. I think that's the way to go about it. Address the manager, train all those people, because some people do not know that, management itself is a science. Somebody will come with an idea that I must force it, but over time, when you expose him to some training, he will start having a change of mind, a different mind. Oh, that my religion belongs to my heart. If I want to do it to others, I should leave it and make people to stick to my religion, not by forcing it down on their truth. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm not seeing any further questions. I don't know if anybody has something to say to wrap up, but it's 11:30 here in Accra. So just to also be mindful of Mr. Richard's time. I think we are going to end today. Silent Screen, we do offer mutual support sessions where it's sort of like this interaction. You just talk with each other, people bring up questions, discussions. So we'll be organizing one soon, we'll put out the information. So those who are interested can join us. But I want to thank everyone once again for joining us, for staying with us. Mr. Richard, thank you so much once again.
You're welcome. I'm most grateful.
Thank you. And we hope everyone has a lovely day, a lovely weekend. And we hope to see you again at the next session.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.